With hip over 50. So some of you may know that I was born in England. I grew up though in Canada and the US and spent most of my life there. Now that I'm back in England, I couldn't be happier. And not only do I have dual nationality, but I think I kind of have a dual personality too, because I can see both sides. I can see, I'm still kind of a quasi American as well as being British. And I thought I'd put together a series for you of what I think the US can learn from the UK and vice versa. So, on with the show. First of all, I think number one on the list of things that the US could learn from the UK is gun control. Yes, thank you very much. After the Dunblane massacre happened here in the UK government took steps almost immediately to pass laws so that it could never happen again, which is awesome. I think the role of government is to protect its citizens, and the UK did a great job at that. So that is something I heartily wish the US would get behind also. It is essential to have good quality of life, and kudos to the UK for passing gun control. Number two on the list of things I think the US could learn is putting people ahead of profit. Unfortunately, in the US culture, it's go, 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 get, do, 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 which there's nothing wrong with that. I love that entrepreneurial spirit that exists in the US, but sometimes people kind of get lost in the shuffle. Here in the UK, people are definitely put ahead of profit. The NHS, or the National Health Service, is a great example. Women can get up to a year's maternity leave. And, they get more than adequate vacation time to enjoy life. So, putting people ahead of profit, the US could definitely learn a few tips from the UK. Another thing I think that I've been really appreciating is just how beautiful England is. And it's been kept that way through hundreds of years through a lot of different methods. For one thing, suburban sprawl is not really allowed here. You have beautiful green spaces between villages and towns, not the suburban sprawl that exists in the U.S., where they just allow unchecked growth, shopping malls, parking lots, and whatever, to blight the landscape. So I think, definitely having unchecked growth and poor zoning is something that the US could learn from the UK to stop that and have a better countryside, better preservation of the natural beauty of the land and even the towns and architecture. And along with that, it's preserving historic buildings instead of tearing them down. That's another thing the UK does really well. I mean, we have buildings here, like I said, that are hundreds of years old, churches, public buildings that are still standing, castles from, 1,000 years old. So yeah, they do a really good job here of preserving those historic buildings, preserving that history. And I think that's why Americans and others love to come to visit here, because this is the only place you can see this. So that's a fantastic thing that the UK does that the US could definitely learn from. And along with that idea is here they value traditions. And I think the traditions that actually create national unity. I mean, in the US, we have the 4th of July, but beyond that, we don't really have any sense of national tradition. There may be local traditions carried out, but a national tradition, like, for example, the royal family, okay? Not everybody agrees with their place here in culture in the UK, but nobody can deny it's a great opportunity for people to say, yeah, that's who I am, I'm British, and have a little bit of a knees up at the coronation ceremony or at any of the jubilees that we've had in the past couple of years. So I think traditions and preservation is a very strong mandate here in the UK, and definitely something the US could learn from their cousins here. And of course, along with that goes maintaining a better work-life balance. I alluded to that earlier, putting people ahead of profit. But, having a work-life balance where people are allowed to have days off, where they're allowed to, create a life outside of work is really important. And I think they do that very well here in the UK. Another thing I think the US could learn from the UK is maintaining a sense of humor, wit, and the very British attribute of self-deprecation. I mean, if you've watched any British TV shows, like, even Downton Abbey, I mean, there's always a bit of wit and humor that's just very uniquely British. And whilst both sides of the pond may have lost a bit of their sense of humor over the past few years, I think it's slowly coming back. And I think the US, while they do some great comedy, could learn a little bit about wit and self-deprecation from the UK cousins. The eighth thing I think that the US could learn from the UK is, please, folks, get out and move about not just the country, but move about the world. I mean, here in the UK, people travel all over the world. They travel frequently to the US, they travel to the Far East. They don't think anything of hopping on a plane and going on a vacation. And consequently, they're not only well traveled, but they're knowledgeable about other cultures. And it informs them. You know, they can have a conversation about other cultures, whereas in the US, it's very insular. It's kind of like a big island. And I think, granted, when you only get 10 paid vacation days a year, it is kind of hard to move about the world. But renew your passport, travel beyond the borders of the US, and find out what cultures and lifestyles are like outside the US borders. That's definitely something the US can learn how to do. And next on my list, number 9, is the value of a simple please and thank you. Courtesy goes a very long way here in the UK, and I think the US could use a big dose of it too. While you Americans are very friendly, outgoing, sometimes you miss those little subtleties like, please, can I have this, or would you mind, or thank you very much, whereas that is a given here. Nothing happens without a please and a thank you here. It's just, you can't help yourself. We almost say thank you too much, but it does go a long way, and I think that's part of tradition and culture here in the UK that I think the Americans could do a little bit better on. And last but not least, Americans could learn how to make a proper cup of tea from the UK. No microwave, that just won't get the job done. You've got to have proper boiling water. We use something called a kettle here that boils water both for making tea and coffee. And yeah, I've kind of got addicted to my tea since moving back here. And I think that's something Americans could enjoy too if they could learn how to make it properly. So there you go. Those are some of the things that I think the US could learn from the UK, some of the things that we do a little bit better over here, I think. And of course, I would love to hear your comments and questions. And of course, I'm going to do a follow-up video, things that the UK can learn from the US. So thank you so much for watching. I really do appreciate it. And I will see you on the next video. Bye for now.